the Hamilton guys.
Thank you, buddy. Dan, thank you very much.
They should be able to hear.
Okay. So we
All right.
yeah, we are all good. So we'll mute this. I think it's not creating any echo. So we are good to go. Thanks everyone joining from Auckland and from Hamilton on site, and the Auckland one, sorry, you have 5 seconds delay for everything. So if you have any question, just let Dan know, then he will just post it in our chat box. So first of all, let's quickly, thanks buddy, we just run quickly agenda is I will go through the overview of what's in new of Azure after the Ignite 2020, and I will basically cover the app development and the modernization update specifically. And we have Rory and Auckland talk about Azure Active Directory security update, and Yen will cover all the Azure security and Office 365 ATP, all these related updates. And the last, we have our Microsoft MVP, Wagner from Wellington is dialing to talk about logic apps on function runtime, which is also a big feature release in the Ignite this year. Okay, let's jump in. So pretty much my slide will be a flat static slide, no animations, otherwise the streaming quality will be terrible. So let's have a quick look of what's the Azure innovation or what's the new features being released during the Ignite. Azure platform, which is the fundamental, the ARM or the computing, has 4 features being released, and the networking, just the one, I will cover that. And we can see Microsoft introduced heavily on the hybrid and the migration services updates, which just empower all the teams to be able to migrate to the Azure much easier than before. And the virtual desktop, although it's just got one update, and which is the most critical, I would say the highlight update in whole Ignite, which is support the team in the virtual desktop. Literally, I would think it's just the highlight of everything. And we got a whole bunch of data and AI updates. And because we will break down into detail, deep dive for the Azure development and the ecosystem, so I won't cover this here, I will cover in the next section. IoT, we got the 2 updates, and MR basically just a release of HoloLens version 2. Voice. So let's quickly have a look at what's the platform update. So first of all is everyone's anticipated resource mover, which gives you more easier or more bespoke or more pre-canned solution to move your resources around, especially across subscriptions. When you're trying to, that service was released as a part of the Azure Landing Zone solution, so which gives you the new capability to move your existing workload into the newly established enterprise scale Azure Landing Zone version 2. So this is basically currently in the public preview, so everybody can give a try. And other than the Azure Resource Mover, the zone-to-zone recovery, disaster recovery from the Azure backup, because we know Azure used to have only regions, you can go across the region, but now each individual region got different zones, so 1, 2, 3 maximum, and you can do the zone cross-zone restoration, which is give you a more cost-effective disaster recovery instead of running everything across regions. And also, for sure, the availability zone will be available for more Azure regions. So currently, the entire Australia region has different zones, 2 of them. So the last one is the network update, only one, which is Cisco Meraki has been available for the SD-WAN. You are able to establish your SD-WAN for the Azure Virtual WAN, as well as the global load balancer features. So which means you can literally create Azure as a centralized switch hub to ingest all your on-premises environment, your AWS, wherever your branch offices into the Azure. And Azure virtually become your centralized data center instead of your traditional on-premises. Before that, it only supports Citrix, which is heavily being, and the solution has heavily been developed by Microsoft and the Riverbend as well. No Cisco finally. Okay, so let's look at the most feature release section, which is Azure Hybrid Infrastructure and Migration. So one of the most exciting thing is the Azure Auto Manager for Windows Server workload, and it's only on Azure. We know traditionally we need to configure a Windows server using either the desired status configuration, ARM template is here and there everywhere. But now Microsoft released a single pane of glass using the Azure Auto Management to be able to do the post configuration and the desired status configuration for your Azure virtual machines with a single profile-based deployment platform across the board. Very, very, very cool. So you can have all your update manager, all your inventory tracking, all your configuration manager in your PowerShell DSC, your Python, your log analytics, everything being templated. It's like a traditional group policy and pushed to your virtual machines as a post configuration package or profile. You can take that profile out and assign a new profile to these virtual machines. And Azure has two pre-canned Microsoft best practices to non-production and production environment, and it also supports highly customized for each individual item. As a part of that, Windows Admin Center for on-premises now is the part of the Azure portal. So you have a seamless experience for the Windows Admin Center to manage your Azure fleet, which is really, really cool, and it's in public preview, and I believe will be GA very, very soon. So this is basically what it looks like when you fire up a virtual machines using the Auto Manager. So very, very simple. And basically, what you need to do is just assign a specific type of profiles, and these profiles are highly customized, and each individual one is basically a piece of ARM template. Or you can stick on your GUI to configure your backup profiles, your log analytics ingestion point, and your security center profiles, basic, free tier, or your premium tier. So very, very useful, and you can switch the configuration profile at any time, and Azure will make sure all this deployment and the redeployment is in a consistent way without any downtime. Very, very cool feature for the system administrator, especially for the Azure virtual machines. So others in the Azure hybrid or infrastructure migration, very, very good features. The first one is now you can run all the Azure services on any infrastructure, AWS, on-premises, GCP, with Azure Arc enabled servers and all the data services. You can run Azure data services on AWS, which we already covered last year because Microsoft introduced Azure Arc last year and significantly extended its service portfolio this year to be able to cover all the data services as well. From the backup side of server operation, we've got a new experience for the Azure Backup Center, which gives a more seamless or more functionality enriched, like zone-to-zone backup restoration in a single pair of glass, and it will also ingest it with other monitoring tools as well. So few other VM update is we got a new VM SKU for using the new Intel CPU and more options for managed, especially on the Ultra disk. And from on-premise and hybrid environment perspective, the AKS now is available in Azure Stack HCI. So, which means you can have a single pod established and also being provisioning or containerized deployed cloud native environment on the fly to your on-premises or semi-offline or complete offline environment. For example, your plants and your IoT environment will also be eligible for that. For the machine learning and AI, Microsoft released the Azure Stack Edge Computing Stack SKU with GPUs. So you can train your machine learning and checking your machine learning model on your edge computing. So this is basically a three-stage. So people tend to see, yeah, my edge is not powerful enough. I push everything to the cloud. Now people are turning back. So I want a offline edge to be able to do more powerful computing. So Microsoft released, I think this is one. Another one is the Azure Stack SQL Server. So the Azure Edge for, the Azure Stack Edge with SQL databases is also available. So which means you can run your SQL and it's less than 5 megabyte footprint to completely containerize the environment. So you can use your on-premises Docker register or cloud-based Docker register to deploy all your edge computing stuff. Then the Azure management or Azure migration will support the new agent-led software inventory and dependency map. Usually, in the past, I used the Microsoft Service Map to generate the dependency. That's quite inconvenient. But now, in the Azure migration services, you can completely generate this service map without any agent being stored on the environment. And the Azure migration program is now enabled for migrate ASP.NET app and the remote desktop to your environment, to the Azure environment. Literally, it's just migrating your remote desktop to the Azure WVD. So this is basically much relevant to us, and also the next gen Azure virtual VMware solution is GA only in the US region for now. You can use all the vSphere, all the vSwitch, all these native machine VMware software being deployed into the Azure environment, and providing you a seamless migration. Basically, literally, you got vMotion everything into the Azure because it's the same platform and you can leverage your licenses. So that's pretty much of Azure Hybrid. And for the Linux side, Microsoft released another hybrid benefit features for enable the Red Hat and the SUSE Linux in the Azure, which means you are not leveraging your on-premises Windows license only. Now the Red Hat, and I believe that's mainly targeting for the SAP HANA. And for the Linux, you have a new customized image builder for you to customize your Linux kernel and patch in the kernel and do the customized image. And as I said, the most important one for the Azure WVD, make it fully functional for the team collaboration, is the new Teams audio video redirector has been completely rewritten based on the web WTC. So which is a P2P protocol, enables to communicate and talking directly over the internet, over the web browser, HTML5 enabled, instead of bouncing back to the team server and goes back again. So significantly about 30%, 50% performance increase and the lag. So this is basically making the entire Azure WVD solution more usable. Before that, doing an audio video conference could be a little bit painful for across the continental or basically long distance. So this is one, and WVD is now a part of native integration of Azure Monitoring. You can measuring your status of your host pool, your applications, everything. So WVD only one, but very important. And Azure Data, Cosmos DB finally goes serverless. You have the consumption model, especially for the small footprints. So if you just want to use it for the dev test for maybe maybe once a day, or maybe just a few 100 gigabyte of message you need to process, go for the consumption-based model. So you don't need to purchase the Cosmos DB and reserve it for even your development environment. Really, really cool. Azure database for MySQL and PostgreSQL can be flexible, so can be flexibly deployed at the server. It's not a fixed SKU, and you got a different SKU you can select and more cost effective. So mainly of the data side is more around cost efficiency, and Microsoft SQL Edge is GA, small footprint database engine, less than 500 meg, and available for the Windows ARM and traditional x68 platform. And now the Databricks got a new engine, which empowered by the Spark 3.0, makes the Databricks calculation 20 times faster than before. Very, very cool. And basically for the disaster recovery, Azure SQL Zone Redundancy is available for general purpose SKU. Before that, you only got mission critical or high stuff. Cool. Databases and AI, basically the main update is the Azure Bot Framework and the Bot Services has been updated. You got a GUI-based Bot Framework Composer, natively embedded into GitHub, and enables the power user instead of a developer to develop all the bot responding packages. So the power user can do a drag and drop type of logic app or similar to the logic app designer to design their bot response. And the bot services for Alexa, I'm not typo. Alexa channel is not. And we have a new Azure machine learning designer, which is basically a more prettier or more simplified UIs being introduced. A few other Azure cognitive services being updated, especially around the natural language recognition. Basically, it's a response to solving the COVID stuff for the paper. So this is pretty much everything from the Azure perspective is the update at the platform side. And in the next section, I'm going to cover all the Azure development and ecosystem update, which gives us a platform overview as well as a tool set of Microsoft updates in this Ignite to enable the developers to create a more robust or more, I would say, sophisticated .NET applications. Okay, because I didn't cover that. This is also basically Microsoft spent a whole lot of time to enable the paper. So first of all, we look at all the platform updates. What Azure platform or services has been updated after Ignite. So first of all, we all know the Azure App Service Plan v3 Premium has been released to replace the traditional v2 Premium version. And with the Windows container support as well. Usually before that, we only do Linux. And it's available from 1st of October in most of the Azure region, including Sydney and the Melbourne data center. It got higher memory to CPU ratios compared to the traditional v2, from 1 to 2 to the 1 to 4. So you got higher memory and higher lower price per CPU core. I need to call out this, it's lower price per CPU core, doesn't mean lower price per SKU. Okay, I'll show you later. And Microsoft changed the v3 specification from v2. So the architectural update might be required to maximize your cost optimization. I'll tell you why. And a like-for-like SKU update might not be a cost-effective way if you use the pay-as-you-go or even you don't have the discount on some certain SKUs. I'll show you why. And previously, Azure App Service Plan is not enabled or eligible for reservations. Now, from 1st of November, the Azure Service Plan Premium v3 is eligible for purchase for reservations. Only eligible for that v3 SKU, not other ASPs. And you got a 35% discount for 1 year reservation and 55% discount for 3 years reservation. And you will get a further discount if you're provisioning your v3 premium on your dev test subscription. Basically, Microsoft offsets your license as well. And upgrade, in-place upgrade from the v2 SKU is available now. And we already came across some issues from in-place upgrade, and because of some of the ASPs has been provisioned too old, long time ago, it's sitting in a legacy environment. You probably need to raise a Microsoft ticket to the Microsoft support team to be able to release that specific ASPs to be able to do the in-place upgrade. So this is basically the takeaway in my experience. We have worked with a few customers to working on that already. So as I said, why the v2 has different SKUs or different CPU, the core models compared with the v1, the v2 is basically Microsoft completely ditched the 1V core SKUs. The v3 premium started with 2V cores. So if you have traditional 1V core premium v2, you cannot do a like for like because it will cost you more. So the only way to do a like for like for the traditional one core SKUs is to do the 1 year reservation. And this is the pay as you go price. You literally get $1 or $2 discount. If you don't go to the reservation, they will basically cost you more. So this is basically the takeaway. Be very, very careful because Microsoft changed the specification of a SKU. So, and but after the reservation, the price is really, really good. And you can see per CPU price significantly reduced, nearly 30 or 30% of per CPU per core price has been reduced. And also the Microsoft, because of that movement, which Microsoft is showing I would say a signal saying you need to consolidate or refactor your current production environment from a single tenant SaaS software to a multi-tenant, making your app service plan fully utilized, deployed highly dense environment into a single app service plan, and you get most out of it, right? And the next is, once we move to the ASP, I was thinking about, should we go for the cloud native, which is the Kubernetes based, or use the PaaS? But once you complete your SaaS or multi-tenant modernization, what's the next? You should consider your cloud native and move away, or maybe use more Kubernetes based your web app deployment method. Okay, so this is basically from reservation break even, and at this point, then doing all of these, you need to do a case by case and also review your price book, because all the different price book, different regions are slightly different. You can see in the Sydney region, the price is slightly different compared with the Melbourne region. The next is the Azure Service Environment v3, which is traditional, what we call it, the isolated environment. So Microsoft is providing a dedicated environment, not connecting to the internet endpoint specifically for you. So before the v3 or the isolated v2 be released, you got a 3K monthly stamp fee be charged. Now Microsoft completely get rid of that. So no more stamp fee, only your app service normal consumption may be charged. And unfortunately, it doesn't support migration or in-place upgrade. You have to do your application redeployment to your new environment. Okay, and some of the AKS update. For example, traditionally your AKS environment doesn't support stop and start, especially for your development environment. Your class or your code cannot be stopped. It cannot be stopped because it's charged you 24/7. But if you don't want that, my environment is only 5 by 7. I can stop it now to save more money, which is very good. And AKS is now being enabled from Azure policy to be able to configure all the ports, namespaces, ingress, and all the other Kubernetes resources, which is good. And from the development side, Azure Datadog integration has been completely available, which means if you have multi-cloud, if you have AWS Datadog, you can also utilize your existing Datadog to monitor your Azure as well. And also the Azure ACS communication services has now been in a preview stage to be able to provide a unified and managed communication platform through the voice, text message, chat, Teams, audio video calls through the Teams as well. It's kind of PagerDuty or whatever, Trello kind of equivalent. So the Microsoft is releasing that as a fully managed environment. There you go. So this is pretty much from the platform side, Azure Microsoft update for developers. Now let's have a quick look of what has been covered in the tool side. More exciting things is coming around Visual Studio, Azure DevOps, and GitHub. GitHub is the future, and Power App and Power BI. I'm not going to cover these two, but mainly the GitHub and the Visual Studio. So the first of all is the GitHub code spaces, which is a completely cloud native or cloud powered development environment, not IDE, and it's seamlessly integrated with the GitHub. And you got a experience for the Visual Studio code out of the box on your web browser when you're editing the code in GitHub repository. And as well as you can use the Visual Studio to connecting to your code spaces to do a lot of development work. Currently, the code spaces is in a limited private preview. I want to do a demo, but unfortunately we can't. I just give you guys some ideas why it's cloud powered. The first of all, we say traditionally we run a Visual Studio on your laptop, you install all the extensions, all your runtimes, all your simulators. Usually a developer will have a small black box underneath its table just for running the development work. Now, everything has been shifted into the GitHub cloud. All the heavily compute required extension, runtime, deployment pipeline, building, compiling, debugging has been done in the GitHub cloud using a fully containerized instance. And what you need to install is just a Visual Studio shell on your laptop. You can even install it on your phone, on your Mac Air, so you even don't need a strong, powerful machines to run all your development work. So which enables developer can do the code development anywhere from the world. And we can take this further by leveraging Windows Virtual Desktop to create a completely secured development environment, which means I've seen a whole lot of banks or other customers start to create a VDI-based development environment. But think about if you need to run a C code development box, what's the CPU, what's the memory, what's the skill you're going to provision for the virtual desktop? Huge money, a lot of money. But by running a lightweight shell on your Windows Virtual Desktop and upload everything to the GitHub cloud enables all these with a cost-effective solution, which is really fantastic things for everybody. And the speed is really fast. For example, install some extensions, literally just take a few minutes. And you don't need to download it from the internet. It's already in there. Microsoft just manage it for you. And regarding the debugging, all the remote debugging port network is built by the GitHub cloud, fully managed. You don't need to open the port. All of these things go through Focus. Awesome feature. So will be released hopefully soon, currently in the limited preview. I haven't had a chance to try that, but really anticipate that. So it will become a really native, cloud-powered development environment for the future. Microsoft's doing good. And from the deployment pipeline or Azure workflow, the development workflow perspective, GitHub enables a whole lot of new actions. Previously, we are not able to provision the Azure policy in the GitHub actions. Now Microsoft completely released a version 0 for Azure policy as code deployment. And in your pipeline, you can also do the Azure policy compliance check and feedback to your next job, as well as you can deploy all the ARM template in the GitHub actions. During the container scan, so doing all the library dependency scan, once you download some container definition from the internet, you need to scratch your hand, is that a secured one? So Microsoft will do that for you in the container scans, and the traceability for AKS as well. So as well as traditionally when you click Visual Studio Publish, it's just published to your Azure directly. Now it will automatically create a GitHub actions instead of directly push your code into the Azure ASP, which makes your full environment fully DevOps ready, CI/CD. So you go through that pipeline instead of crash your production environment. So all of these awesome features will be available. So all of these actions has been available right now. You can have a test of that, and also all of the source code has been released on Microsoft GitHub repository. Okay, this is pretty much everything regarding the tools, Visual Studio. And next, I'm very pleased to announce .NET 5 is GA today. Literally, GA today. And the future of .NET is .NET 5. We know previously .NET got different varieties. You got the .NET Framework, which is the Windows native one. You got the WPF, WCF, which is not available in the .NET Core. We have .NET Core, which is the cross-platform, Linux-based, Mac OS, whatever you name it. And you got a mobile-based, Mono, Xamarin, and basically everywhere. So now we have one framework rule all. So we want no more .NET Core, .NET Framework, and anything else. Everything is .NET 5, based on .NET Core, unfortunately. Your WPF will break. If you call Windows.system, the application will break. Sorry about that. And Microsoft basically is trying to advocate a single SDK, one base class library, unified torching, cross-platform, cloud-native. What is the cloud-native feature? It supports single file application now. Really awesome. Small footprint for your Kubernetes deployment, and also got a whole lot of speed and performance increase, about 30%, compared with the traditional 4.8 and .NET Core 3.1. So it's time to migrate, right? Now today is G8. While the Ignite was released, it's got release candidate, it's RC. Today, very good, G8. You got native web support, smaller container images, support the Windows ARM64 compiler, as well as the new language feature, C#9 and F#5. And also it starts to support Apache. Some of the nice cloud native feature is it supports most of the REST APIs. And the gRPC, oh, it's a typo, should be RPC. So which is the native cloud or does factor for the microservices remote procedure call. Very, very good. Otherwise, you need to load your library from somewhere else. And the question is, no more .NET framework. Everything is .NET Core. What do we need to do? Microsoft will still support 4.8 .NET Framework. It will be the last version supported from .NET Framework perspective. We will recommend to start .NET Core or straight away from .NET 5 for your new project. There's no point to go back to using the old traditional Windows system. And Microsoft provided a .NET portability analyzer tool. I think it's been GA since September last year, sometime, but has been updated very recently to analyze your traditional .NET framework application and compare with the new .NET 5 framework to see which class or which namespaces you need to update. Predominantly, most of your traditional Windows MVC or ASP.NET MVC won't work if you call any systems Windows.systems namespace. Excuse me, you have to rewrite that. And if you have a traditional .NET Windows project, you can use another command letter, which is called try convert, to convert the .NET Windows project to the .NET Core project. And it's not available for your ASP.NET, unfortunately. You have to completely rewrite all your web applications, update it, modernize it, but start using your .NET 5. Download it. Okay, so this is all the latest updates from Microsoft regarding the development and ecosystem. I think we're going to cover the Logic Apps part because that's also another big update as well for Logic Apps. Any questions from Auckland or even from here? Oh, cool. So I will hand back to Auckland. Yeah. Your show time.
So, Dean, just so you know that Ying's...
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Dan, so you're taking brain?
Can you guys hear me?
I can, and Zhenyu. I think the guys in Auckland are both on mute, but Dan is just joining now.
That's okay, we can hear you, Wagner. So if you wanted to share your screen.
Okay, so we're going to have a little change in plans. Yang is going to join us later. In the meantime, I'm going to jump and do my presentation on Logic Apps Runtime. So if you give me 1 second, I'm going to be sharing my screen and again continue.
Okay, we're off mute. Auckland's off mute, by the way, so you should be able to hear us.
Yes, we can, man. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go back on mute. Was there any questions for Zen?
Sorry, Dan, with that?
No, it's all quite. It's crickets here, so we'll go back on mute.
Okay.
Okay. So since I'm also a producer, I'm assuming that everyone is seeing my presentation.
Yeah, we can see that fine.
All right. So let's start. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining forces. We have 4 user groups on that. Have the Hamilton user group, the Auckland Azure user group, Azure Lunchtime, and Auckland Connected Systems, all in a single event. That is really, really nice. And on my session on Ignite News, I'm going to be talking about the Logic Apps updates, right? So I covered some of the news from Ignite, but also something a little bit more that happened after this. And for the agenda today, we're going to talking about Logic Apps on Azure Functions Runtime. We're going to take a peek on VS Code extension, some updates that happen on the portal, and some of the other news that came from Ignite. Okay, and I'll give you some links to where to find more about some of that information. So what is the Logic Apps on the Azure Functions Runtime? With that, we have the ability to get the Logic Apps running anywhere, right? You're going to be able to get Logic Apps running on the portal as it is today, but also running on locally on your machine, in other clouds, and anywhere that you can containerize if you want. How they managed to do that magic? They basically embedded Logic Apps into the Azure Functions Runtime. Okay. One of the things that they did as part of this process was break down Logic Apps in 2 different types. Now we have stateful Logic Apps, and it's the Logic Apps that you see today, where every single step is going to give you full stats and the full instrumentation that you have and you see on the Logic Apps today. But that always costs performance, right? If you have to make sure that you have the instrumentation on every single one of the actions in a Logic Apps, that has a performance impact. So one of the things that the team did was you can now choose if that information of every one of the steps is important for you. You can run what they call a stateful Logic App. If that is not as important as performance, you can run a stateless Logic App. And when you create in a Logic App, you can define if it's a stateful or a stateless. Okay. And what is the developer experience now for those Logic Apps in Azure runtimes? The first thing is that now you have a new VS Code extension. And on that code extension, you actually going to have a brand new design experience, right? You'll be able to actually inside the comfort of your Visual Studio Code, create new Logic Apps, run and implement those Logic Apps, including the design, as you can pick on behind the screen. You'll be able to deploy from there, right? And the other thing is you'll be able to do a local execution. So instead of having to run on the portal or having the requirements to be connected to Azure all the time, there is still going to be times where you need Azure access, but without having to be fully connected, you can run those Logic Apps locally, right? Taking the advantage of the function CLI and the function runtime that runs with that. So all of that give you like improve the developer experience, because now you can create your logic apps locally and then package all of that with a much simpler package and push that to Azure, or push that to other places where you're not able to do that. Okay. So I think it would be a good idea to take a quick look of how that extension looks. And if I go and bring my Visual Studio Code, you're going to find that extension if you search for the Logic Apps, and you're going to see now that you have an Azure Logic Apps preview. So if you install that one, you should be able to have that new experience. Okay. Once you do that installation, what you need to do is here on your Azure extension, that is one of the prerequisites and they're going to be installed together. You're going to have a new Logic Apps preview environment. And from here, you should be able to either create a new Logic Apps project that is going to be created locally, or create a new workflow, or deploy those Logic Apps that you created into Azure, right? For the sake of time, because I know that I have 10 minutes today to go through all of that, I'm just showing here one example of a Logic App where I already have that working. And now if you click on Logic App and click on Open in Designer, you're going to be seeing something that you didn't see before, that is actually having a local designer here. It takes a little bit to warm up, but after that, you have the ability to see your Logic App on the designer, right? One of the things that they did with the designer that is quite interesting is now you have this property window, quite Visual Studio-like, where you can actually set up your information, but when you don't need that, you can take it out of there. So you have much more real estate to work with. And if I wanted and run that Logic App, I can simply run like I was running a normal project. And when that happens, it's actually running locally. So it's just building like a normal function project. Okay, and you can see that the stateful sample workflow or Logic App is now looking at localhost 7071. If I wanted to find exactly how to run that, or what is the information that I have in respects to that specific workflow, I can right click and look into an overview page for that. And what it shows me is actually something quite similar to what I had before for my Logic Apps on-prem or in the cloud, right? I have the address for my trigger. I have my run history. And if I get like one of those ones and look at specifically to that one, I can see things that I run before. So like all that kind of information that we had before, you have the ability to do more or less the same thing here with an all local. Okay, so not going to spend a lot of time on that, just to give you guys a little bit of awareness that that is there. Because at the end of that, I can point you out where you can go and find a lot more about that specific extension. But the news doesn't finish there, right? The same thing that we just did locally now has been duplicated on the portal. When we get during Ignite, we have the ability to look into the experience on the Visual Studio Code locally, but we didn't have the experience to look at that in the portal if you prefer to work on the Azure portal, right? So now we also have the Logic Apps preview available in the portal. We have pretty much the same experience or quite similar experience to what we see here, but now on the Azure portal. And one thing to notice is that actually uses the function preview runtime. So again, if you do like just a quick peek on how that looks. Just double check that I'm in the right one. There we go. Don't need to think again. So if I go to that sample one here, we're going to see that I have a mini Ignite demo. This mini Ignite demo is a Logic App preview, right? But when you're looking at that, it looks a lot like an actual app service or a function app, right? So if you look, one of the main differences is that you have that area here where you usually would have your functions. Now you have your workflows, and if you click on that, you'll be able to see each one of the workflows. If you click on one of the workflows, you're going to see a similar kind of panel that we saw before on the overview, and you have access to both the code and to the designer. So I'll just go ahead and create a new stateless. And this is a sample stateless, just to see a little bit of the difference of what each one of them would do. So let's take a look at that sample, a stateful sample here. What that Logic Apps does is just when an HTTP received, I initialize a variable and I respond. Okay, it's really simple. We can do the same thing with stateless and just try to see how fast one or the other runs. So I choose a trigger. When HTTP is received, get a variable. Sorry. Come on. Where are my variables? Let me reset that for a minute. Okay, Demo Gods is not with me, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that one because I'm pretty sure that that's more on my machine than on the actual process. So we see here basically that you can have the Azure function running now locally on Visual Studio Code, and you can have the same Logic App running on the portal using the Azure Functions Runtime. Just to complete a bit of information here, the app service plan associated to that. Just show it from here. It is one of the functions premium SKUs, right? So that's at this stage that is going to be probably the minimum required for that logic app to run. For that the logic apps on functions to run, which make kind of sense because you needed to keep everything a little bit warmed up. If I go back to the presentation, some more news. As part of this, Microsoft also talked about API connection as a service. So the idea of API connection as a service is all those API connections that you have available on Logic App, right? Or basically the connectors or the connection for the services, you should be able to actually use that by itself inside Azure Functions as bindings. There is a lot more information about that one that is coming up. So probably we could have another session just about that one down the line, right? I don't think it's in public preview yet, but it's going to be at some stage, maybe by the end of the year. I'm not too sure. Another thing that they did is they created what they call automation tasks. So a lot of repetitive tasks or tasks that you needed to do to manage the Azure automation or to manage your Azure resources, you can do now as a Logic app from the portal. So, for example, if you go down to that Logic apps, that Logic app workflow app, the Logic apps preview that we talked. Down here at automation, now you're going to see tasks. And the idea is to have a set of pre-canned tasks, like in this case, like send a monthly cost for the resource, right? And then when you select that, it goes and take you through a series of steps. And at the end of that, it creates that automation task for you. But behind the scenes, that is actually a Logic app. And if you needed to adjust that slightly or extend into what they create for you, you should be able to do that as well. So that would be like simplify a lot the creation of those tasks, but also give you the ability to, if what you require is not exactly what is out of the box, give you the ability to extend using a tool that is as powerful as Logic apps. And the other one, just for the hardcore integration fans here, Vstock migration tool. So as part of Ignite, Microsoft also announced that it created a tool that allows you to analyze your Vstock applications from Vstock 2013 onwards and give you guidance on how to migrate those artifacts, the receive locations, the send ports, the orchestrations, etc., into the cloud. And for some of those components, it's actually going to generate some code for you, right? But it's also going to give you a report. There was a session last week about that. Then probably you should be able to find that one on YouTube. I'll find some of those links and put on the chat window after this presentation. So just to finish, if you're looking for a little bit more information, you can find a Logic Apps Runtime deep dive on this link here, and that is going to take you to Microsoft Docs with a whole lot of information there. On the same way, if you wanted to know a little bit more about the Visual Studio Code extension, you're going to find on that link. That was quite useful for me to getting that running the first time, because I had the private preview installed and some other versions of the function runtime. So going through that document, I recommend if you're having any trouble. And a shameless plug, tomorrow I'm going to do an extended version of that the presentation, actually centering on the Visual Studio Code extension for Logic Apps on integration down under. So if you're interested on that topic, I will suggest you to go to www.integrationdownunder.com and register for that session tomorrow. It's going to be 9 a.m. New Zealand time. And that is me. So let's check what we have on the, if there is any questions. Doesn't seem like there is any questions on the live event Q&A right now.
No, just checking the room. Stan, I can see he's just taking himself off mute. Is there any questions in the room?
Any questions here? You guys are so quiet. This is really unusually quiet. It's like quiet as a mouse here, even if I've got stickers up here.
People is not used to the in-person anymore. Give them a keyboard to see if they type some questions.
It is kind of weird. It is really surreally weird. So no questions for Wagner?
We are mesmerized.
Okay, apparently they're mesmerized, but yeah, I'm not convinced. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we? I think we're gonna kick over to security now. With Yang, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, we'll go back on mute, and then after Yang, we've got Rory for identity.
Perfect.
Okay, so Yang, you can share your screen. It's going to supersede mine.
Sure, let me pick up my screen. So please let me know if you can see my screen.
It's going live. It is live now, mate. It's all yours. So I go back on mute.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So, yeah. Hi, everyone. I just want to share some security updates from this Ignite. So Microsoft delivered a clear message for modernizing the Security Operations Center, SOC, pivots around the two things, the C and the XDR. C is the Security Information Event Management, and XDR is the Extended Detection and Response. So XDR is a solution that knows well of your workload and give you the insights based on like Microsoft 365 identity and SaaS application. SIEM is going to look at a very broad picture, take the signals from like XDR and extend that to other system, other source of the security information. In here, by using a single vendor of XDR and the SIEM, which is from Microsoft, the Microsoft Defender and Azure Sentinel, provide end-to-end visibility across all your resources. Microsoft has rebranded its XDR technologies. So all XDR capabilities have been unified under Microsoft Defender. So we will have a bit more on the rebranding in a minute. From the cost perspective, by using a single vendor of XDR and the SIEM, it reduces the complexity and provided the ability to do more sophisticated security without spending too much on the integration. So it's quite important, especially during this like a pandemic time. So Microsoft deliver one of the most comprehensive XDR capability in the market with user environment protection technology, like as we know, so like the Microsoft Defender ATP, Azure ATP, and Office 365 ATP, as well as the infrastructure protection technology like Azure Security Center Standard Edition, Azure Security Center for IoT, and Advanced Threat Protection for SQL. Now Microsoft is unifying the branding of this technology under Microsoft Defender brand. So under this Microsoft Defender umbrella, on one hand, it is Microsoft 365 Defender to protect the user environment. And on the other hand is Azure Defender for cloud workload protection, infrastructure-related protection. From Microsoft 365 Defender technology side, like a Microsoft Defender ATP is now renamed to Microsoft Defender for Endpoints. And with new updates on cross-platform support, Microsoft Defender for Ends now provides security for non-Windows platform like Mac, Linux server, also the new coverage for iOS, which currently is in preview, and Android platform as well. Android actually is in GA already. So another example is Azure Advanced Threat Protection, which is the most confusing name ever. Now it's renamed to the Microsoft Defender for Identity, which is make more sense. From the Azure Defender side, Azure Security Center has two tiers before. One is the free tier, another is standard tier. Now Microsoft changed the name of standard tier to Azure Defender. So Advanced Threat Protection for SQL now is rebranded to Azure Defender for SQL, and it also added the protection for SQL Server on-premises and in multi-cloud environment as well. Azure Defender also improved its protections for container, including the Kubernetes level policy management and continuous scanning for container image in container registry. Next. So beyond the rebranding, there is a new Azure Defender portal or Defender dashboard as part of Azure Security Center in the Azure portal. So the new unified dashboard is showing you the coverage of current protection, which resources are protected and which are not, and they need to be taken care of. So it's also giving you some security alerts graph in the middle, also bits like insights on the right-hand side pane. It's quite an informative, the new dashboard. So let's take a look at this security operations, the reference architecture from Microsoft. So XDR capability of Microsoft Defender provides rich insights and prioritized alerts. Microsoft Defender has the security orchestration automated response capability baked in. So leveraging on the analytics and automation is to offload all the manual efforts and pains for you. So like those tier 1 triage or those investigations, all the tedious work. To gain the visibility across your entire environment, Azure Sentinel can including data from other security solutions, such as firewall and existing security tools, also connecting Microsoft Defender to Azure Sentinel to provide end-to-end visibility to all your resources. And also, SOAR is present in the Azure Sentinel as well. So Azure Sentinel is not just a SIEM, it is much more than a SIEM tools. Microsoft also announced some new features and improvements within the Azure Sentinel. So like the new entity behavior analytic, the UEBA, make it easy for you to diagnose the compromised accounts or malicious inside. They also simplify the management of threat intelligence by including the ability to do the search, check the threat indicator, perform threat intelligence lookups, and create a watch list. So Microsoft keeps on improving the data collections, supported our Teams, Microsoft 365 Defender, also other Azure features, or some third-party tools as well. So Microsoft not expect you to do everything yourself. You always can get advice from the Microsoft threat experts, or you can get help from the MSPs or MDR. The next, so the Microsoft Security Center doesn't go away. It continues to provide the cloud security posture management with quite a few new enhancements. So Azure Security Center now has a preview of a unified multi-cloud view that can including security alerts from other cloud providers like Google Cloud, AWS, to simplify the security posture management. So it kind of integrate the security tool from other cloud providers like the Security Hub from AWS, the Security Command Center from GCP. So it brings those security recommendations from there into the Azure Security Center to give you the posture for overall for your digital estate. So Azure Security Center is also leveraging on Azure Arc to get other cloud platform and workloads connected to protect against the threats. So you will get a customized threat intelligence and prioritize alerts according to your specific environment. So you can focus on what matters the most. So the last one I want to talk about is the Azure Security Benchmark V2. So Azure Security Benchmark V2 is aligned with Microsoft security best practice, or you might know it as the Azure Security Compass. So to provide like a single consolidated view of Microsoft Azure security recommendations so that you can deploy to increasing the overall security and the compliance for your workload and environment in Azure. So the security control of Azure Security Benchmark are based on industry standards and the best practice, such as the CIS control framework, and also they newly added the NIST SP 800-53 control. So now you can using the Azure Security Benchmark to meet the CIS and the NIST requirements in Azure, and also monitoring the requirements in the Azure Center compliance dashboard. From diagram, you can see that you can find that this benchmark is part of the holistic security guidance that also including like a cloud adoption framework security guidance, which covers the strategies, roles, responsibility, and those Azure top 10 security best practice, or someone called Azure top 11 security best practice, and reference implementations, also including the Azure well architecture framework security guidance, which help you to secure your workload on Azure. Also including the Microsoft security best practice, which provides some recommendation with examples on Azure. So there are more coming to this Azure security benchmark. So the benchmark V2 actually is built on top of the V1. Microsoft will keep on adding like the V2 blueprints, which help you to enforce the benchmark requirements. Also, Microsoft is working on adding mapping of the PCI DSS control like requirements. So far, Microsoft has published a security baseline for around like 50 Azure services based on benchmark V1. So these baselines provide service guidance on how you can meet the benchmark requirements for specific Azure services. Also, you can using those like security baselines as part of your cloud service assessment process. So Microsoft will keep updating the security baseline to adopting more based on this brand new Azure Security Benchmark V2 recommendations. I recommend you to take a look onto the Microsoft documentation to using those controls and kind of compare what you have set up in your environment to secure your environment. Yeah, I think this is pretty much all from me today. Thank you.
Thanks, Yang. There was just one question on the Q&A. With Azure ATP, how do you scope it only on licensed users instead of all users, considering the Azure ATP gets enabled on the tenant level? Can you see that? Sorry, it's not in the meeting chat, it's just in the Q&A, which you probably, if you just next to the phone button, there's just
1 second, then I make it up.
The screen.
Yeah, try to get back to my Teams 1 second.
That's okay.
Do you mind a response in the chat window a little later? Because I was just
sure. I will let you,
off the work. I got so many windows open there.
No worries. Dan, over to you now.
Okay, you can't hear us because I'm on mute. I'm just going to unmute. Oh, can you?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, it's actually over to Rory. I'm just making some slight adjustments.
If you could maximize the screen, yeah, that'd be great.
That's whose screen is that?
The hearing impaired.
Okay.
Yep, awesome.
No, that's not what I want.
It still should be recording.
Here we go. Sorry, I was presenting the wrong slides. Let's see if that's good. I'm not going to be able to. I'm just trying to share my screen, but I'm having a bit of a fail. Okay. Are you guys seeing? No, you're not seeing my share.
Not yet, no.
Okay, let's try again.
That seems to be loading.
Still nothing?
We can see just your initials.
Yeah, I've just realized what it's going to hear my, if I go and curse under my breath, that the closed captioning is going to go and put it up on the screen. So I'm going to be really careful about that. Give me a moment. I'm going to change. So I just want to share that screen.
Not sharing.
Okay, so we may have run into a slight glitch here. We're not able to share from this end. We can obviously display at this end, but you're not going to be able to see the slides. So I think in the,
Oh no, there you go.
There we go. Okay.
Just like that.
Just like, yeah, okay.
Just like
Sorry
that.
about that.
Good.
Good to go.
Oh, well, welcome. Sorry about the technological problems. So my name's Rory. I'm a Microsoft Identity Architect. I do Azure AD and Azure AD B2C and ADFS and the MCell and the ADL libraries and all that good stuff. If you've got any questions, you can ping me. That's my Twitter handle. And on GitHub, I've got all my presentations. So if you want to see these slides, that's where they are. So ton of stuff announced at Ignite in Identity. Microsoft have got this saying that identity is the new control plane. So identity these days is a lot more than authentication and authorization. It's a whole kind of protection around Azure. You've got identity protection, protecting the perimeters, conditional access, and all that good stuff. So basically, in terms of where Microsoft is going with identity, they're looking at adaptive access. They're looking at seamless user experience. So passwordless is definitely a very big push for Microsoft. So stop using passwords. Unified identity management, so that you get the same experience across Android, iOS, and your web stuff, and basically automate a lot of stuff and simplify the identity governance and make it easier for you to basically make your environment more secure. So Zero Trust is a very big thing for Microsoft at the moment. So Zero Trust is basically trust no one, assume you've been breached, always check. So in the old days, we had a little company, you could put a firewall around it and that would be good. But now when you've got software as a service applications, you've got millions of IoT devices, where is the perimeter? Right? It's impossible to police the perimeter because where is the perimeter? So Zero Trust is basically just keep checking. And one of the screens that they've got now basically gives you all the conditions and sign-in statuses, so you could go and check for invalid sign-ins and people hacking and all kinds of things in one screen. Conditional access is huge inside of Azure AD. If you don't know what conditional access is, it's basically a set of policies. So you can say, I only want people with Android phones to be able to access this application, or people in this group, or people in New Zealand can just log in. People outside New Zealand can log in, but they have to use MFA first. So there's a whole lot of policies that you can add. Before Ignite, it was all done through the portal. Now there's a whole set of APIs, so you can do all of this through DevOps, which makes it much easier to manage. They also announced conditional access for Azure AD B2C, so B2C is more for the customer rather than the employee. Conditional access is something that people have been asking for a long time, and the biggest thing that you can do in conditional access is that you can force MFA, which knocks out 98% of all hacks. The next best thing you can do is block legacy authentication. So legacy authentication is these really old apps that don't use modern authentication, they don't use OpenID Connect or anything like that. When you cut those out, you also cut down a lot of hacking. So one of the things that they've vastly improved is password spray. So password spray, you know, traditionally you hack one user and you throw millions of passwords at that one user. Password spray is you have millions of users and you throw one password at each of them, and then the next password at each of them. That makes it much, much harder to detect. And so they've improved, they've basically got the learning module now looks at over 300 different patterns that they can look at. So just an example of what's going on out there. There's 80 million attacks into Azure every single day. And the machine learning and the AI that at the moment catches 98% of them, and they're continually improving it. Now, if you go to my sign-ons to Microsoft.com, once you've logged into Azure, it actually gives you a page, and if something happens or you think someone signed in that wasn't you, you can go and report it on that page and say that wasn't me, and then that feeds back into the learning, into the AI, so that they get even better than 98%. Some of you may have heard about the Azure AD App Proxy. So App Proxy is a proxy that sits out in Azure that enables you to get to applications on premise. So you download an agent onto your server that talks to App Proxy. You basically go through the App Proxy, it forces you to log in Azure, and then takes you down to the application. Now, a lot of Java applications especially use a thing called header authentication. Now, App Proxy at the moment, for header authentication, you have to use a third-party tool called Ping Access, so you need extra licenses and all that kind of stuff. Header authentication has now been bought into Azure AD, so that saves you all the effort of getting another product. They also have added a whole lot of load balancing and delivery control partners. So before Ignite, you could integrate the App Proxy with F5, Zscaler, Citrix, or Akamai. Now they've added Palo Alto, Ping, Cisco, and a whole lot more that basically feed into Azure App Proxy and give you a converged experience across everything. Another feature that they've announced is external identity. So you've probably all seen guest accounts in Azure AD. So guest accounts is you get invited, so you get an email with a link, you accept that, and you come into Azure as a guest user. So you are a user maybe in another Azure tenant, and you can now use this tenant here. So external identity is the kind of extension of guest accounts. So you'll see on some login screens it says no account, create one. And when you go to that, you'll pick the address that you want to use to log in. And then you'll see a screen where you enter some information that the organization wants from you. Now, if you've ever used B2C, this is actually a B2C screen. So you can set it up. I don't have time to show you all the setup. You can set up what information you want the user to capture. You can set up what parts of that go into the claims that are sent to the applications. And so we've got B2C, which is a customer. We've got B2B, which is traditionally the guest accounts. And now we've got B2C coming into B2B, which Microsoft calls B2X. So it's like a crossover between the two. So if you see, traditionally, if you went and looked in the users in Azure AD, a guest account, you'd see on the right, it says invitation. Now in this new flow, the guest account, it basically says self-service sign up. So people can essentially sign themselves up if you set them up to enable that. What I've also done is I've consolidated all the pricing. We used to have different pricing everywhere. So the same pricing for B2B, external identities, and B2C as there's one price, one ring to rule them all. That's basically the B2X scenario. And basically the first 50,000 monthly active users, either P1 or P2 are free. So a monthly active user is a discrete user logging in at least once a month. So this is going to take over from the 5 guest users per Microsoft license. This is going to be the new licensing going forward, and it's now consistent across everything. There's a new thing in the identity world called decentralized identity. Decentralized identity is essentially that you own your own identity, because at the moment, Facebook knows stuff about you, and Twitter knows something about you, and Google knows something about you. You've actually got no control over all of this stuff, right? So decentralized identity is trying to say, hand identity back to the user, back to the person who actually owns it. So part of that is, so this is a whole new thing that's coming out. There's a whole lot of big identity players in the forum. Microsoft is a very big player in that forum. One of the areas is verifiable credentials. The United States Department of Defense has got a system to try and make their veterans, the people that leave the military, more employable. And basically what happens is that veteran would have maybe gone to university and he's got an academic transcript. So the veteran goes to the university and asks for the transcript and puts it on a wallet. That wallet is on his mobile phone. It's not sitting in Facebook, it's not sitting in Twitter. He's now owning it. And now it's up to him if an employer asks him, please give me your transcript if you think you're applying for a job. Instead of having to phone them and say, please send the transcript, he can send it straight away. And he decides which employers are going to see your stuff. It's not like the university can just send it out. You decide who sees it, and if you don't like that job, you don't send in your transcript, and that's it. You control your own identity. So all the stuff is obviously signed in that, so you can't hack it. And how do the signatures work? The public is a public-private key, decentralized, and it all runs on blockchain. So this whole thing is obviously controlled by blockchain. And what's the space? Decentralized identity is really getting big. So this thing that I've just showed you for the Department of Defense is actually called Milgear. So you can go and Google Milgear and you'll see it. It's actually running live today. And the information is not stored in Azure AD. This is a Microsoft thing, but it's not in Azure AD. It's you. It's on the blockchain, and you own it. And you can, just like, who do I give my Bitcoin to? You decide that. It's exactly the same thing. Who do I give my identity to? It's up to you. Okay, so the next bit and the last bit of my presentation got nothing at all to do with identity. When Satya Nadella gave his keynote, he had a really cool thing at the end of his keynote at Ignite, which is basically showing Microsoft Flight Simulator from way back what it looked like in 1980 to what it looks like now. I actually stopped it because I was getting pissed off seeing all the places I can't go to. But yeah, you could see, if you've ever played with Simulator, you can come and land at Wellington Airport, and if you really like, you can put a Hurricane there and then land in a Hurricane at Wellington Airport, which is a lot of fun. All right, thank you. And Dan?
Thank you.
Thanks, Rory.
Are there any questions?
Okay, I think we're probably going to wrap it up. Simply, I don't know, Sarah, if you can hear us, are you going to do a wrap up? at your end?
I've checked that with Zen. Zen, is there any wrap up, or are we all good to end it there? You're going to do something? We can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
All good. Yeah, we are all good here. This is from
Okay.
Hamilton.
Well, unfortunately, I was going to say,
yeah,
Zen, we can't give you any stickers, but we have stickers here. So I highly, if you want stickers, please come and grab some.
Sure, thank you. So yeah, just a little bit of advertisement for Hamilton user group. So next year we are going to have a round country road show. We have different sessions at different cities around across New Zealand. So we are planning for that, but still will broadcast to live. So everyone is welcome, including Auckland and Hamilton or wherever you sit.
Awesome. Thanks, Zen. Thanks, Hamilton. Thanks, Wellington, wherever else we. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
and thanks for coming along and putting up with our technical challenges.
Thanks, everyone.